Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ball Agenda Review Show. I know you all have missed us, but we're back again. And
Real this time, we just signed a deal.
Yeah, on my right side, I'm joined by Mr. Fayem today. If you want to say hi to everybody.
So good to see everyone. Excited to talk about a lot of the craziness that has been happening in football lately, and just share some of our thoughts.
Yeah, good to see your face again. See as looking soft as ever. But we're gonna dive right into it. This episode is going to be kind of our transfer edition, but we're also going to wrap up on some of the stuff that happened at the end of last season in Europe's top leagues. Let's put it as that. So let's start with Prem. City won the Premier League. Kind of was a tougher race than we expected around December. And Liverpool really put up a fight. What do you think about City and them winning the league again? Pep, obviously, but falling short in Champions League.
Yeah, no, I think these two teams have been just really exceptional, I'd say, for the last 5 years. I remember not last season, but the season before, where I think City beat Liverpool and went a point ahead, and everyone said basically both teams have to be perfect because no team will drop a point till the end of the season. And they both won every single game for a really long streak. Similarly, this season, after their game where they drew, we just all understood and knew that if anybody dropped a point, they would lose the title. And it happened again. They just kept winning through to the end. So you have to credit both teams. I think ultimately...
Came down to the last day as well.
Yeah, exactly the same again.
So City remontada, if you will.
I'm so... It's funny when people call it a rivalry, though, because City have won 4 times out of 5, but it has been close on multiple occasions. And honestly, just credit to Pep Guardiola. I think it's the least he could do, because otherwise the season would have looked really, really funny in the lights. Like you mentioned, the shameful exits in the Champions League and the other cups that they always seem to just find a way to win. They weren't able to get over the line. So ultimately, I think like it doesn't come across to me as an amazing season. It was honestly just okay, but it was a good title race, and it kept us interested in the top 4 race, in the title race, in the race for other European spots, and also relegation battle to the end. So I was pleased with that.
Yeah. I think, I mean, we were engaged, like you said, up until the very last day. Gundogan coming on to quote unquote win the league, but I think that should also, push us into talking about Liverpool as well, which they started off the season a bit unsure where they were going to end up, and then they end up there's a lot of talk of a quadruple actually at the point this season. Obviously finished with a very domestic double and not so impressive season, but
you even call that a domestic double.
It's a poor man's domestic double, right? But if I say too much, they'll say, that's the United fan you talking, because we have no trophies. But I'm slandering myself. But I think
both won on pens. Right?
Correct, both won on pens. But Liverpool. We're going to talk about Liverpool and then kind of segment into what they've both done in the transfer market so far in terms of City and Liverpool. But I think Liverpool just kind of always fell short of the mark in terms of, like you said, City have won 4 or 5, so you might not even call it a rivalry, but they're always up there. They're always pushing. They're always playing really good football in a number of ways. But why do you think it is that even for like Champions League, for instance, where they went in as clear favorites, everyone talked about Real Madrid scamming their way to the Champions League final? Why could Liverpool not pull it off? And why did they end up, after talk of a quadruple and arguably one of the best teams of this generation? I mean, they're still out there, but why do you think they fell short?
It's hard to say why they fell short in the Champions League, because I watched that game and they just weren't at it. And there's a certain way that Liverpool plays when they're behind or when they're trying to break a team down. Even when they're not necessarily playing that well, there's just a certain level of pressure that they put you under with the crosses that they put in, with how quickly they are at winning the ball back, that I just couldn't see. So I have to attribute it to I have to attribute it to tiredness at the end of the season. I have to just, part of me just thinks that they ran out of legs. They started to have a little bit more in terms of injury worries. And I think just Real Madrid, off of the momentum of the types of teams that they have beaten to get there, probably just had a lot more belief. Because honestly, Liverpool, if we're talking about scamming their way, had probably the easiest one you could ever ask for to get to this final. And Real Madrid probably had the hardest one to ask for. How they did it had huge elements of luck, but it was still the better teams that they faced. And I think probably just from the intangibles that come into football, where it's not just tactical, just the belief, the mindset, the attitude. I think Real Madrid were just in a much better place for the final.
I think you talk about
mind, Liverpool just lost also the league.
No, I think you talk about belief, but you could kind of, if you watch the game, and those are stuff you might not pick up on, but it seemed to me like Real Madrid had been there before. A lot of their players, you could tell they've been there before. They're not overwhelmed by the occasion. They had to withdraw. Liverpool, for instance, had to withdraw Luis Diaz in the 60th or so minute. Okay. So you could tell maybe they've been overwhelmed by the, and that's something that we always slight City for. I think is when it comes down to it, how many of their players have played in those Champions League finals, have been in that position before, and what's their, whether you talk about level of composure or just how do they approach the game, at the end of the day, it looked like Real Madrid was just a bit more comfortable. Modric was bossing the game as he usually does. Toni Kroos played almost 90 minutes in that game where he hadn't played in a number of games prior. So it just looked like they were a bit more comfortable. I think, sorry for Liverpool that their era had to end that way, because they would have gone down as a much, much, much greater team had they have won the second Champions League.
That's a hot take. You think their era is over?
It has to be over, right? Because
Klopp signing a 5-year deal or something.
Their era has to be over because I know people are, and this is whatever you want to say, into Mane. Their era has to be over, I personally believe, because a key part of their front three is gone. How do they recover from that? They've obviously tried to sign Núñez for a deal almost worth £100 million, I believe, if not euros. And so you think, okay, they have a future there, but I don't see them being as fertile in the attack without Mane. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the Liverpool weaker side now, having lost Mane and replaced him with Núñez. I think we also saw the limitations that I've been seeing and talking about in Luis Diaz's game when he came across much more, just a much better defender and Carvajal. They didn't have a snip all game. But also, I think there's a lot that people have credited. There's a lot that people have credited him with in terms of end products that I just don't see. And I think they won't be able to replace Mane's goals playing him on the left. And Núñez is going to have to really pull his weight through the middle if they're to really make up for losing Mane. So I think they're weaker side.
Yeah, and you talk about even through Liverpool's era, I think through their better part of the era, they were always playing Firmino as the 9, and then you have Salah and Mane through the wings, kind of as left and right forwards. And so you look at how it's going to work with Núñez, because a lot of times, at least from what I've seen of Núñez, he runs in behind as well. He's not always going to be that Firmino figure where he's almost like a false 9. So I think it's going to be a very, very different system, and I'm very curious to see how Salah feeds off of that as well. Because Salah got those goals because Firmino drops in deep and then Salah makes those runs. And so now, unless maybe Klopp intends to play 2, or if he plays a 2 up top, then where does that leave space for people like Luis Diaz or like a Jota off the wing? So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they dovetail. But I think certainly Liverpool's era of dominance, I personally think, is over. Especially because when you look on the other side at Manchester City and who they've added to their team, right? Erling Haaland, one of the best. Bayams is going to disagree, but one of the best strikers of his generation. And that's something that people have said for a long time that they have missed. Let me ask you this, actually. Fun question. Why do you think that Pep actually, it's like a twofold question. Do you think Gabriel Jesus is worth 45 million pounds? And second question is, why do you think that Pep has then replaced the 45 million pound striker with Erling Haaland? Very, very weird question, but I know what I'm getting at with that question.
Yeah, so a lot of people think that the Jesus deal is overpriced. I actually think it's underpriced because he's 25, which is a now player, is not one for the future. He has that Premier League experience, he has international experience, and he's scored goals. So I think it's actually a really good deal for Arsenal. And I think, just to go back to your point before about Haaland being the best striker in his generation, there are like the best strikers right now are not in his generation. So that's not really saying much. Just to like, is it Nketiah they're comparing him to? Like that's not really saying. Huh?
The new Thierry Henry, number 14.
Oh, yeah. So if that's his competition, that's not really saying much. And then, but hopefully he can come good for Arsenal. I know Arsenal, I've backed him a lot. There's question marks over that, but we'll get to see this season. And secondly, I don't necessarily think Guardiola is replacing Jesus because Jesus barely played through the middle. So
which is basically my question is if Jesus is worth 45 million in terms of his ability, I guess, is what I look at. Why would Pep opt to play him out wide versus you have an out and out nine who's a 50 million pound or 45 million pound nine? Why don't you play him up top? And now why have you kicked him out of the club instead of just, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why was it when Pep needed and clearly he needs an out and out nine because he's bought Erling Haaland. So why was Jesus not that preferred option? And why would they rather play Phil Foden to the middle instead of Jesus? So for me, I look and say maybe he's not worth that 45 million pounds because maybe his coach and Pep and the people around him have noticed, okay, this guy is not as clinical as what he's made out to be. He holds a record for the most goals scored in the penalty box exclusively in the Premier League, which said something about his style of play. I don't know if that is what Arsenal is looking for right now.
Yeah, Arsenal is looking for a penalty box finisher. I think that bodes well for them. I would say I wouldn't weigh too much in my assessment of Guardiola's decision, because something came out that I read recently from a reputable source that Jesus, for whatever reason, wanted to play out wide. So I don't think he was kind of forced out wide, and he's actually proven to be very effective out wide. That's where the problem comes for Arsenal, because he's not going to play out wide for Arsenal. So that's something that Arteta needs to figure out and decide. And I think he's decided that he will play him through the middle. And also, Arteta knows him from his time at Man City. So this isn't just a completely new relationship, completely new player. So he probably knows something from that time, has discussed with the player and understands that. And I don't think Jesus was also kicked out of Man City. I think, judging by how long negotiations have taken, City have tried to hold on to the player, but the player wants to move elsewhere. The player wants to be that guy, have more playing time, and maybe just try for a new challenge. I think besides the Champions League, he's pretty much done everything that you could want to do in English football. So now it's a new challenge, new city, and I think the player pushed for the move for those reasons.
Yeah. And then pivoting really quick to obviously a team we've talked about, facing Liverpool in Champions League final, Real Madrid. I personally think they have done some fantastic business picking up Tchouaméni in the market, right? I don't know if I may be missing one more signing, but I'm pretty sure that's been their only signing of this window, right?
Yeah, that's from what I've seen. Yeah, they picked up Tchouaméni, and there was a disaster class highlight reel that was traveling across the internet.
Tchouaméni and who?
I've only seen Tchouaméni so far.
Correct. What do you think about that signing, and how do you think that will play out for what seems like?
And they've lost Gareth Bale as well, but I guess that was free agency.
That was
which is also kind of exciting what they're doing over in LA. But there was a disaster class reel of his traveling across the internet. So we'll wait to see how he fares. But I think it's a good signing. I think they're locking down what seems to be a very, very, very compelling midfield for the next 5 years. Camavinga, Tchouaméni, Valverde, I think you can build a team around that. And I think they already have experience, winning experience at the top level, and are very poised to take over from the current midfield. So I think just in terms of succession planning, I have looked at Real Madrid over the last few years and thought I was a little unsure about what the plan was and about what was going on with recruiting. But I think in the past 18 months, I've been pretty pleased, and it doesn't look too good for other competition in La Liga, the way they're moving in the market.
Correct, given that they won with what seemed like one of their weakest teams in a long time.
Exactly.
They were able to pull off a win in La Liga. And I think, like you said, it didn't look like their recruitment was doing very well. But one thing about Real Madrid is that they seem to always find a way to win, and they have that pedigree about them as well. A lot of players will always want to come play for them. So I think it was a shoo-in that Tchouaméni would go there. I watched a bit of him when I thought United would be interested in picking him up. Watched him playing for France as well. He's really, really, I think for his age, very mature. And I think it might have been a bit premature going to Real Madrid, but he's going to be paired with the likes of Camavinga, who's also very young. And I think together they will be the next crop of great players we've seen at Real Madrid. What do you think about now kind of coming back to Prem, a really, really interesting signing, and one that I'm very, very I admire very much, was Spurs picking up is Bissouma. What do you think about that signing, and how does that look for not just Spurs moving forward, but also Brighton, losing such a key player?
Yeah, I think the stat I saw was 180 tackles this season for Bissouma, 176 tackles for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and those were the top two for those stats in the league. I think that alone should just tell you where and how much Tottenham have strengthened for next season, and just how much more solid their midfield is. I think it's a great signing. I think he was courted by a lot of the top clubs, and honestly think he could play in every club in the Premier League. And I really think that with the Perisic signing, with Kulusevski just building on his amazing form last season, I think Tottenham are in a much stronger position, and probably the only gaps left, probably from a succession planning standpoint, they might want a goalkeeper, even though they have Fraser Foster. He's also similar age to Lloris. Another centre back, and probably a right back. And I think they could be in a really good position to have a really good season. I don't know what good means for them, because I don't see them winning a title, but maybe they can win something. The team is just a lot stronger than it was 2-3 years ago. And in terms of Brighton, I don't think Brighton will struggle too much. I think it's a big, huge loss. And I think he's definitely was definitely one of their best players. But Graham Potter has just proven himself over the last few years that he just is a really good coach and understands putting his players in systems that get the best out of them. So I think this is just another challenge, and he'll find a solution with a new signing or just with a system that works for them. And I think Brighton, similarly, I don't know what good is for them, but they won't get relegated, and I think they'll have a comfortable season.
Yeah, well said. I think while we're on the topic of London teams, I think it's a good time to talk about Chelsea and what's been going on with them. For the benefits of those who haven't been keeping up with what's going on with Chelsea, they've actually, obviously, their previous owner, Roman Abramovich, who is Russian and a Russian oligarch, I think, was caught up in the whole political thing going on in Russia, and was made to step down as owner of Chelsea Football Club. And as a result of that, they've had new ownership step in Todd Boehly, and he's another billionaire. And so they're in good hands, I believe. But with that change has come a lot of change within the club. And that's leadership, that's management. Luckily for them, their manager stays on board. So Thomas Tuchel is still going to be their manager. But they've lost, a lot of their leadership, even with Marina leaving as well. So what do you think about where Chelsea will end up first of all, going into next season, and what do you think about their business so far? They've not really had any meaningful things come through in terms of coming to the club, but they've had Antonio Rudiger leave the club. Christensen, I think, as well, is rumored to leave the club to Barcelona. So what do you think they'll do this transfer market?
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting time for Chelsea with the transition. I've been pretty pleased with Todd Bowley's approach to really getting his hands dirty and really understanding the business that he now wants to run. I think this has been one of the biggest gripes that Arsenal fans have had with the Cronkies, where yes, Josh is more involved, but Stan, who's actually the owner, doesn't really feel like he understands the football business and just how to operate and the things that come with recruiting, with player management, with just football operations. And I think Todd Bowley has really just gone after that immediately just to get the full context of that business. And I think that should be very, very promising for Chelsea fans. And I think also because of just everything that went on, it does make sense that there's this overhaul, losing Marina Granovskaya. And I think it's great that she's still staying in an interim position to just help him through this transfer window, which, like you correctly stated, is a very important one. So I think the fact that she's still helping in an interim capacity, I think is very promising. And they also lost Petr Cech today as well. So they're making a lot of those changes. And I think that could have one of two effects. It could be one thing where it's an amazing new start, breathes new life into the organization, management, and just gives an additional boost to the team, the players, and the fans. Or it could take quite a while to start to see the effects of those changes. So Chelsea fans would obviously hope for the former, but I'd be interested to see how that plays out. And in terms of the transfer window, this is a very important one. Chelsea had a very average season because they didn't win anything, even though they got to 2 finals. They ended up making a meal of 3rd place. And now Tottenham, who were behind them, have strengthened a lot. And they don't look any closer to the top 2. So this is a very important transfer window for Thomas Tuchel. And
so
as
far,
no,
I was just going to say, so far, all they've done is kind of lose players. They've lost, as I said, Christensen, Rudiger, who was so important to them last season and the previous season as well. It's gone off to Real Madrid. £100 million signing in Romelu Lukaku has gone on loan for what? A fraction of the fee. And so it looks like everything is, pointing at all roads lead out of Chelsea right now. Right.
Yeah, and I think the loss of Lukaku is good. It's good for team morale. It's good for just steadying the ship. I think it was a bad. He was just starting to have negative effects on the squad, indirectly or directly, based on the comments, based on just how things have been playing out in the media. So I think that was good. And based off of last season's performance, you wouldn't really say that they lost a ton of goals and need to replace them. Based off of what we want and wanted from Lukaku, you would say that. And I think, at the time of filming this, a second bid has just gone in for Raheem Sterling. So if that goes through, they do add some goals, they strengthen the attack. And as you correctly mentioned, I think starting to find reinforcements for Jorginho and Kante, who is starting to look a little bit more injury prone. And for the defensive players that they've lost, Rudiger, Christensen, unsure what's happening with the Aspilicueta situation. But pluses are Ben Chilwell being back, Rhys James also being fit, and will definitely the things that we're hearing about Jules Koundé, if that goes through, would definitely be a big boost for Chelsea. I think Thiago Silva still has the legs in him, and that makes them look very solid. And it's not as bad as it looks on the outside, but there's definitely work for Todd Bowley to do this summer.
I have a quick question about one of the things you said. Obviously, they've been really strong links to Raheem Sterling, who I absolutely love as a player. I think he's up there as one of the Premier League's greats, especially for his generation at least. Where does Sterling fit into the team, given that a lot of times tactically at least, Timo Werner has started out wide? And how does that look in terms of, obviously they brought in Lukaku, not just for the goals, but in terms of the system as kind of the man to soak up the pressure, target man, and then have the runners out wide as well, right? So now that if imagine a front three of Werner, Sterling, and Ziyech actually looks like he's on his way out as well. So Werner, Sterling, Cho, who would be their front three, but whoever their front three is, how do they dovetail in terms of when they can't be running in behind, when they have a deeper block, how do they break up that block? How do you think that plays out?
Yeah, I think Thomas Tuchel is probably one of the I mean, he is one of the elite managers in the game, but one of the best managers at adapting systems to the opposition and changing on a game by game basis. A very adaptable manager, and I think if I'm just to brainstorm right now, if they go for a three, I could easily see Sterling on one side. He's proven to be pretty effective on either, and Werner on the other side, and Havertz as the striker / the nine. And I think that leaves you with options for Callum Hudson-Odoi off the bench, Christian Pulisic, who I'm not a fan of and don't really think really adds that much, and Hakim Ziyech off the bench as well. If he stays, yeah, he looks like he might be off, and that's also starting to look interesting because Milan having won are strengthening, so maybe their sights now are set on a good European run. They've brought in Origi, they're looking at Ziyech, and there's actually quite a lot of business happening in Serie A. With Juventus actually also making some signings. So all of that is looking exciting. But to go back to your question, I think Tuchel now has more options, has a trusted goal scorer that he can bring into the mix, and someone who's Premier League proven. So it's not really as much of a gamble as the Lukaku one was coming from Inter. So I think it's a good signing. I didn't see it as the solution to any of the problems that I saw, but I can see how it strengthens Chelsea for sure.
Yeah, and now to kind of switch over to Serie A, like you said, there's been a lot of movements going on, not just within Serie A, but also, them exporting an important talent as well. I think one of the things you talked about was AC Milan winning the league and then strengthening in bringing on Divock Origi, who obviously I think will impress in Serie A because he's just that kind of he can be explosive at times, but it just seems like if Tammy Abraham could succeed, not quite the same player, but same build of player, I think Divock Origi also will succeed. But I think one thing that really stuck out to me in the Serie A window was Lorenzo Insigne leaving Napoli to the MLS to become, I think, the highest paid player in MLS history. It looks like maybe Bale would top that. I don't know what he's on, but what do you think about that and what that means for Napoli? I think he had been at the club, 16 years? Am I crazy? Insigne? He had, over 400 games? I need to get my stats right.
Yeah, Insigne had been at the club for a while. It definitely came as a shock. I think Napoli also had a really strong season up until the last 6 games or so. They looked very much in it and interested in the title race. And I honestly just think the MLS is starting to have a bit more of an allure. I think because we're also hearing that Messi is going over there in pretty much a year, I think, or 2 years. I can't remember what exactly it was, but it was basically, I think it was going to be about 36 or 37. And that just tells me I thought he would actually try to spend some more time in Europe, but seeing what happened with Giorgio Chiellini.
He's running away from the grind.
Yeah, seeing what happened with Giorgio Chiellini, seeing what happened with Gareth Bale most recently. I think it's just becoming more of an exciting place and more of a destination. I think just from a branding and financial perspective, the brand of it is growing. And I think in advance of the 2026 World Cup that'll be here, like these are huge opportunities from a financial and business perspective for these players in advance of that tournament. So I think it makes sense on paper why they would do it. And honestly, I'm just curious to see who heads over there because this trend is going to continue.
Yeah, but I would also say on the flip side, in terms of Serie A, I think they are also kind of getting back to. I mean, growing up, Serie A was the place to play for a lot of players. We saw every single star you could probably think of at some point either played for AC or Inter Milan, right? And I think they're kind of getting back their mojo. If you ask me, a lot of players seem to have that zeal to actually want to play in Serie A and prove themselves for historically really, really great clubs. You saw Tammy Abraham go to Roma and really become like, a cult hero there within a year. And in the same light, what do you think about the business Inter has done? And I mean, picking Lukaku up, losing Perisic, but picking Lukaku up, obviously very different roles that they're going to play. But I mean, in terms of strengthening the team, do you think they're going to be better off going into next season and maybe they can push for no longer second, but now maybe win the league again?
Yeah, I think there's also been talk about Dybala since he was unable to get his extension at Juventus. So if they get a Dybala, Lukaku, and Lautaro front three going, I think that could be very. What'd you say?
I'm pretty sure Nketiah has left Roma.
Yeah, Nketiah has also left Roma. So Roma have a lot of work to do this transfer window. They had a good season last season. Congrats to the special one. Sure, he still has that special touch. Winning the Conference League, their first title in 14 years, and their first European title in a much longer time, and just bringing so much love, so much togetherness to the city. The celebrations were incredible to see, but that doesn't paper over the cracks for me. There are clearly serious problems and serious personnel gaps within that squad, and he was really working with his hands tied behind his back. He's proven that he should be backed and still has that winning touch. But if they don't back him with reinforcements in defense, reinforcements in the midfield, and also replacing people like Henrik Mkhitaryan, this season is not going to be anything like what the fans expect, and definitely won't be a step up from last season because, as you correctly mentioned, a lot of the teams above them are strengthening and putting themselves in better positions to compete. Yeah, that's generally my take on the Roma situation, the Inter situation, and what I think is happening in Serie A, especially with Juve also going after Di Maria, bringing back Pogba. It's going to be really, really difficult to get in that top four if Roma don't start really, really moving mountains.
Yeah, and I think as a last touch on Serie A, the old lady Juventus, they've kind of fallen off on the European stage, and even domestically they just finished fourth. But they're looking good in terms of who they're picking up. Personally, I'm a fan of Paul Pogba. I thought he should have stayed at Manchester United, but obviously it was kind of a toxic relationship at some point.
Yeah, and they offered him nothing, 300K a week.
Nothing, right? Yeah. So clearly he values himself very highly, and now he's back to what seems like his comfort zone. I think a lot of people compare him to Lukaku in terms of what we say running from the grind, where he just goes back to where he's comfortable with, and he doesn't want to prove himself. And that's the one fault I will have of him is I would expect him to stay and try and prove himself. But he's back to Juventus. At least that's what we've been told by Fabrizio. And they're looking like they're pushing.
No free promo, please.
I'm sorry, Fab. Call us though.
Yeah, call us and we're happy to promote you.
Exactly. Yeah. But they're also looking like they're about to pick up Angel Di Maria, and replacing an Argentinian with another. So what do you think about Juventus and how they will look in Europe? Because there's what in Italy goes to Europe.
Yeah. Everyone has this playoff thing that they do, but they'll go and they play Champions League, and I think it's just going to be very. Yeah, I think they're stronger, 100%. They're definitely stronger, and I think I'm interested to see what a better season for them looks like, because fourth is unacceptable. They have to challenge for the title, and I think that they're better. So it's very likely that they can. Yeah, full season of Vlahovic, a full season of Pogba, potentially Di Maria, and whatever other signings that they'll make. I'm unsure if Allegri will still be there, but if he's there, they probably want a really, really compelling title challenge for him to continue past this next season. And generally, I think that they're moving how I expect them to move after a disappointing season. So I'm excited for their prospects next season.
Yeah. And Chiesa, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing him play a full season because I think he's one of the most exciting talents in Europe, and I think it would be very interesting to see where they end up. Now, quickly shifting gears before we wrap things up a little bit, we're going to switch over to Germany, where I think we had a little, talk right before this episode, and we're like, Bayern, we probably shouldn't talk about them. So we're not going to spend too much time on them. But they have made some really significant signings, and it looks like they're also going to lose a pretty significant player in Lewandowski. They've currently picked up Mane, they picked up Gravenberch, who is a fantastic signing. They picked him up really, really early in the transfer market. They always wrap up their business very early. And they also picked up a right back in Mazraoui from Ajax as well. So they did a double, picking up Graven and Mazraoui from Ajax. And recently, obviously, Mane joined, and Lewandowski looks like it's on his way out. Where do you think Bayern ends up in Europe? We don't have to talk about their league because they're always going to win. But where do you think they end up in Europe, and are their chances increased now that Mane has joined, or are they in the same position?
Yeah, I mean, I think we expect Lewandowski to go, but it seems like they're not letting him go. So that's a situation that we have to watch closely. And I think also you have to look at, like, when people ask why did Mane leave Liverpool, just look at how they welcomed him. They congratulated him on the AFCON win, Bayern, as soon as he signed. That's something Liverpool never did, really, and they didn't celebrate him, even though all other Senegal players were celebrated by their teams. They lit the outside of the Allianz Arena in his name when he came. Like, this is like really welcoming, loving the player, letting him know that he means a lot. And that's something that Liverpool, just by virtue of having Salah in the team, were just probably operationally unable to do for their reasons.
For me, they peaked in terms of not that they will not have good seasons again, and they might obviously win trophies, but I think Mane felt like he's achieved everything, and he said it himself. They've achieved everything achievable as a club while he was there, right? So they've won the Premier League, they've won the Champions League. What else is there for him there?
Yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, what are you saying?
I was going to say, players like Mane, like, not every player is going to be like Mane, but I think Mane is always looking to challenge himself and always looking for the next challenge, kind of to prove to himself that he's that guy. Not necessarily that guy, but, it's like, what else am I doing here? What can I win? And that's, I think, the point Lewandowski is also at, where he's kind of at this crossroads where he either stays, Bayern have won everything with Lewandowski there.
After I start padding for 10 years.
But it's never too late, right? Because some people will continue.
Now he wants a challenge.
He can continue start padding. There's nothing stopping him from. He's Lewandowski in Bundesliga, right? Nothing. He will continue scoring his 30 goals. But I'm proud of him because he looks like he's up for another challenge, right?
Yeah, fair. Fair. No, fair. And I think they're definitely if they keep Lewandowski, they're definitely in a stronger position. If they lose him,
Oba and Lewy again.
If they lose him, I'm interested to see the kind of formation that they play, because last season Mane showed that he can play down the middle. So I'll be interested to see how he's deployed by Nagelsmann. And that's just someone else that we have to really watch next season, because very, very disappointing domestically outside of the Bundesliga, and also in Champions League we saw, and he never gets his credit that he deserves as just one of the master tacticians in history of the game. But we saw a manager who was just better than the other manager, because
I need a ball so I can hold it every masterclass.
Because what they had at their disposal was just like, it was night and day. So a respectable display would have been already huge, and for him to knock them out over 2 legs and convincingly just showed that. So Nagelsmann has a lot to work on over the summer and prove this next season, and that's I'm interested to see how he reacts.
I think that's always a virtue of, and I mean, sometimes I think otherwise, but for the most part, I think when Bayern underperform, it's because of the lack of quality in the Bundesliga a lot of times, and so it's hard. And I can make for Paris Saint-Germain for a number of years. Now the quality in Ligue 1 is picking up, but I think Bayern, for a lot of times, they struggle because they go from, we're running through teams, winning 8-0, Muller is celebrating every 5 minutes, to now you face a team that actually has a set back line and people not just jumping into tackles and an actual formation being played against you, right? So now you struggle to find the goals that you were finding before, and it's not as easy. And that's what it looked like against Villarreal. It looked like they just they didn't know where to go. And so I personally think if they keep Lewandowski, they have a huge chance of winning the Champions League. But I said that last season. If they lose him, though, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they play with Mane, Koeman, Gnabry, and Sané. I think those are 4 very explosive players, but it's going to be very interesting to see how kind of they all dovetail and find a role on the team. But like Mane said, he's willing to play anywhere on the field. I just think obviously he will naturally play that 9. Yeah, really, really quick, putting Fines on the spot to kind of wrap us up. Who do you think has done the best business this transfer window, and who do you think will, I mean, because obviously we know the rumors going around, who do you think will kind of win the transfer market? There's no winning, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of, it doesn't have to be, you know, a league leader. It could be a Brighton strengthening. I think even you can look at Aston Villa. They picked up Diego Carlos, obviously solidified Coutinho as well. Who do you think has done the best business, dollar value wise, and you know, will help them bolster their squad?
Yeah, I think so far for me it's a tie between Bayern Munich, getting Gravenberg, Mazraoui, and Mane for around 75 million. I think it's just insane business. And I think also in terms of solving the issues of last season and strengthening for outgoings, I think a close second is Man City. Solving the issues in terms of getting an alternate out striker, and also Fernandinho out, Calvin Phillips in for 42-ish million, which seems like a good deal. So I think I have them.
I can't believe I honestly forgot that Calvin Phillips deal, because as a Manchester United fan, that one really hurt me. Especially because, number one, there were no real ties before the announcement was made. I didn't see any really reports on that. And secondly, I felt like
that's how you do your business. United just announce every single thing, every player. Those guys are linked to me right now.
Correct.
Like they just announce everything and don't do any business.
and then it seems like everybody's turning it down. Man City, really quick, Fernandinho is out the door. Immediately get a replacement, which people talk about him replacing Fernandinho, but in reality, unless he's going to play backup to Rodri was already that Fernandinho replacement.
Yeah.
So
I mean, also just gives them options.
It's a fantastic bit of business that will go under the table, because obviously everybody talks about Erling Haaland and a new striker, and obviously picking up Julian Alvarez as well. They've done a fantastic bit of business, and they have really now, I'll be honest, if they didn't already, no excuse not to win the Champions League. None whatsoever. But to me,
I'll still look at it funny, even if they do it, because
I don't, because they have the resources they spent.
This is buying the Champions League.
Yeah,
but it's worse if they don't.
Yes, sure. I think, to be very honest, a team that I think has done really well, in at least been impressed by the bits of business they're doing, Arsenal. I'm very surprised by
complete change, working early.
Exactly, complete turnaround in terms of their transfer strategy. And I don't know what gingered them to be like this, whether it's that close shave with Champions League, and now they see the possibilities, they believe in Arteta's vision, and now they're investing. But I'm really, really impressed by their business. They picked up Gabriel Jesus, strong links to Rafinha as well. Obviously, Saliba coming back in. Ramsdale hopefully will have a great season as well. Tomiyasu settling in.
Picked up Fabio Vieira.
They picked up Fabio Vieira.
And they're strongly linked with Lisandro Martinez.
Correct. So they have strong links to Lisandro Martinez from Ajax. So I'm so surprised, because there's tweets going around that like gone from obviously the trenches to now talking about breaching FFP rules. I am like, what's going on? I
think I agree with the first with that somewhat. I mean, I agree with that, and I think also in addition to that, I think the Conkies are getting the taste and the smell for winning. I think the Cardinals just won the Stanley Cup yesterday. Sorry, the Avalanche, the Colorado Avalanche just won the Stanley Cup, and Kroenke owns that team. The LA Rams won the Super Bowl. Kroenke owns that team, and now he's looking at his football investment and wondering when are they going to win the big prize. So maybe there's a little bit more of that going on as well. But definitely, I think there's a belief in the vision. They've come out and said that they're fully committed to the young players approach, and they're not coming out and saying something and doing another thing. It's backed up by the types of transfers that they're making. And I think everybody, if everybody's fully fit, Arsenal have a very good squad now.
Great. Especially if they pick up the likes of Rafinha, who has proven that he can change the game on his own.
Yeah, right? And I just don't think that Nketiah did anything to earn 100,000 a week on a 5-year deal. But belief in you, belief in the system. Someone has come through your system. I can't really know.
So I watched an interview with Nketiah. Really, wrapping this up, right? But he made a good point. Is you stick him in 1 or 2 games, every 5-6 games. He's not really had a good run in the team. You can't really judge him based on that. Now you give him a good run, which at the end of last season he proved. Maybe he gets you 15 goals a season, and that's okay. And 100K is
that's huge. If he does that, that's huge.
Correct. So I think it's having that belief in Nketiah has never had the big stage to prove. You talk about the likes of Phil Foden and gets gassed up so much, and even when Pep was saying, Phil Foden is the best blah blah I've ever played. Even in a team with David Silva and the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Phil Foden was getting minutes. Nketiah struggled for those minutes up until the end of last season for the most part, right? So I think it just comes from potential and giving him the chance to succeed. Now, in the next season or so, you can say he's played XYZ amounts of games, 20 games, 25 games, and he scored 2 goals. Then you take him out of the team, but give him a chance first. So I think it's fair that they did that. I don't know about the number 14. I don't know how he bamboozled you guys to do that one. But
I think his confidence.
For all I'm trying to say is it's only fair to give him a chance. And if he disappoints after giving him a chance, then you can say, okay, we were wrong on that. But you can't judge before and say, he's not done enough, right? He's not a bad player. He's not, I don't think he's a world beater, but he's not a bad player. So, and he has the right mentality. He wants to struggle. A lot of players would have left by now, but I think he has the right mentality, and sometimes that's all you need.
I mean, he's very smart to have not left, because you're not going up from Arsenal, and he was going to go.
Especially after not proving yourself.
Exactly.
Go down to come back up.
I think he got a little lucky as well, but smart. And so just to end on this note, I want to ask you, what's Gabriel Jesus' celebration? I was Nketiah's.
Oh, hell.
You see the connection. You see the connection. When he calls, Nketiah is going to pick.
All I know is that they better back 35 goals. 35 between.
When Jesus calls, Nketiah is going to pick.
I beg. Arteta, I'm going to call you. Hopefully.
Huh?
No, I said hopefully. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Arsenal have, no matter where this goes, I think they've shown their fans, at least the Cronkies, they've shown their fans that, maybe this is not just a random investment. We're actually very invested in seeing the club succeed. And I'm happy. I think as a fan, I'm happy, right? And I hope to see the same from United, from the Glazers.
Amazing. So, leave agendas at the door whenever you analyze the beautiful game. Share your expert opinions or do a topical deep dive. You need to make sure that you ask yourself,
do I really? No more. Thank you very much.
Good night.